Now, we're going to travel through some strange and rough territory tonight. And the real title of my talk tonight is The Quigley Formula. And the subtitle rather explains it. It says, The Conspiratorial View of History, as explained by the conspirators themselves. That's my topic. So, to begin, we should ask the question, who is this man Quigley? All right. Carroll Quigley was a professor of history at Georgetown University. He's deceased now. But he was teaching there at the time that our former President William Clinton was a student. And Clinton studied under Quigley. In fact, they became rather close, I am told. So close that 27 years later, when William Clinton received the nomination for president, in his nomination speech, he mentioned Professor Quigley by name and paid homage to him and told how much of an influence Quigley had had on his own political thinking.
As a teenager, I heard John Kennedy's summons to citizenship. And then, as a student at Georgetown, I heard that call clarified by a professor named Carroll Quigley, who said to us that America was the greatest nation in history because our people had always believed in two things: that tomorrow can be better than today, and that every one of us has a personal, moral responsibility to make it so.
After Clinton was elected President of the United States, in at least two other speeches that I have been able to discover, he did the same thing. He mentioned Quigley to his audience and paid homage to him. Now, why is this significant? It is significant because Professor Quigley taught the conspiratorial view of history, as explained by the conspirators themselves. Quigley was rather close to it, if not a part of it. In his books, which I'll be describing in just a few moments, he said that he was very close to this group. He had studied their private papers for several years. He knew these people firsthand, at least the ones that were living today, and he admired what they were doing. He said that his only objection to this conspiracy, as he described it, was that he felt that they should be public. He felt that it should not remain secret. He felt it was time now for them to come out in the open and take credit for all the great things that they had done. So Quigley was the rather official historian of the conspiracy, and very proud to be that. So when Clinton paid homage to Professor Carroll Quigley, it had a double meaning. For the average person who didn't know who Quigley was, or what his political views were, or what his specialty was, they thought, oh, how nice. Here's President Clinton paying honor to a nice, kindly old professor who had a profound influence on his school years. But for those who knew who Quigley was, and what he wrote about, and what he said and believed in, there was an entirely different embedded message that was to be delivered just to those few who knew. For those few, Clinton was saying, I know about this conspiracy, and I am now in its service. So what is this all about? First of all, we need to define this horrible word, conspiracy. A lot of people have a knee-jerk reaction to that. They talk about conspiracy theorists, as though conspiracies weren't real. And I feel sorry for these people because I know they have never read a history book. Because history is full of conspiracies. In fact, it's hard to come up with a major event in history that wasn't created to some large and significant extent by a conspiracy, or more of them. Conspiracies are very real in history. They're very real in our present day. If you doubt that, just go to any courtroom and sit there and listen to the cases that come before the judge and before the jury, and a good percentage of them involve conspiracies of one kind or another. So when people talk about conspiracy theories, I have to laugh. It's too bad they don't know anything about history. But nevertheless, the word does have some emotional overload to it. So let's talk about it. What is a conspiracy? Most of the dictionaries define it rather straightforwardly. To be a conspiracy, there must be three elements present. First, there must be two or more people involved. The second element is that they are using deceit or force. And the third element is to accomplish an illegal or immoral objective. That's a conspiracy. So the group that we're going to be talking about today, as you probably have already guessed, you're thinking ahead, they certainly involve two or more people. So that one is easy to check off. The second category, using deceit or force, real easy to check off because these people are masters at deceit and certainly masters at coercion. It's part of the style that they have adopted, and nobody challenges that. It's the third element where we have somewhat of a debate. Is their goal illegal or immoral? Well, sometimes they engage in illegal activities because they really don't care much about that. But for the most part, and their major operations are done entirely legally. Because you see, many of these people write the laws. They contour the laws to force you and me to do what they want us to do. And if we resist, we are the ones that are acting in an illegal fashion. Almost everything that this group is accomplishing is done entirely in accordance with the law. I can't think of a better example than the Federal Reserve System. Sometimes I hear people say, well, they ought to audit the Federal Reserve. Did you know that the Federal Reserve has never been officially audited by an independent agency? And I have to laugh. I don't care if it's audited. I don't want to audit the Federal Reserve. I want to abolish it. What is the point? Because I know that if they were to audit it, they'd find that the Federal Reserve was doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing according to the law. Everything is legal. They're stealing your money and mine legally. So you see, we're coming back to this question of legality. So we cannot say that this group is doing things essentially illegal either. So that is a fact. But now we deal to this question of moral. Is their goal moral or ethical? Well, you and I may think so, but I'm here to tell you that these people do not. They have their own set of values, their own ethics, their own morals. And ladies and gentlemen, they firmly believe, most of them, firmly believe that their goal is the highest morality, far higher than yours or mine. They are trying to build what they fondly call the New World Order. And to them, this is high morality. And it's the old Neanderthal throwbacks like you folks and me that insist on sovereignty and human dignity and so forth. We're the ones that have mental problems or moral problems in their minds. They are pursuing the highest moral standards in accordance with their own convictions. So you see, if we rely on the traditional definition of a conspiracy, in their minds, they are not involved in a conspiracy. However, in the minds of the rest of the people on this planet who have to live under the results of what they're trying to do, I think the word conspiracy is a very adequate and appropriate word, and that is the definition or the context in which I will be using it tonight. Now, Quigley described this conspiracy primarily in two books. Now, I understand that he also lectured on it extensively, and I'm sure that William Clinton kept extensive notes. But nevertheless, we don't have to worry about his lectures or the possibility of notes, because he published two books on it, and every detail that you could possibly wonder about is contained in those two volumes. The first one is called Tragedy and Hope, and the other one is The Anglo-American Establishment. They're available. You can buy them on our website. You can go to Google and search for it. You can go to Amazon. These books are now available, and I do urge you to read them. I have to warn you, they're dry reading, and most of it is enough to put you to sleep because it's dull history. But every once in a while, you'll come across a passage that is so startling, you shake your head and say, did he really say that? And you go back and read it, and by golly, he really did say that. You need to read these books. For the purpose of our presentation here, I'd like to summarize what you will find. Now, these will be my words. This is my best effort to summarize what Quigley was talking about, and some others, by the way, a few other people as well. And then, having done that, I will come back and give you some extensive quotations to show that my summary is accurate. Otherwise, you may wonder that I'm perhaps exaggerating or leaving out some details. So here's my summary. At the end of the 19th century, a secret society was formed by Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes, as all of you know, I'm sure, was one of the wealthiest men in the world. He was the political head man in South Africa, the chancellor, I believe they called him. And while he was there, he was able to acquire control over all of the diamond deposits and the gold deposits of South Africa, all of the mineral reserves. And in that period of time, he amassed one of the greatest, if not the greatest, fortune in the world. What people don't realize is that when he died, none of that money went to his heirs. Where did it go? It went through a series of 7 wills to create a secret society. The purpose of the secret society was to create a structure that would literally control the world from behind the scenes in a fashion that the average man or woman would never see it or never suspect it even existed. The Rhodes Scholarship, which most people know about, was just the tip of the iceberg that was created in one of the wills of Cecil Rhodes. And the purpose of the Rhodes Scholarship was to provide a funnel or a recruiting mechanism to find the most appropriate, the most likely individuals, young men and women, who could be recruited into this secret society. It should come as no surprise that William Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. Fits perfectly into this scenario. This secret organization is not just of historical interest. It exists today, and according to Quigley and other observers who are close to it, it is the most important single historical force in the world since World War I. Just think about that for a moment. Is it true? Well, we'll cover a few facts and you judge it for yourself. The goal of the secret organization originally was to expand the British Empire and the men who were behind it, not necessarily the royalty, but the real political figures behind it, and I'll mention some of their names in a moment, to extend the British Empire to control the world, because Rhodes and his associates believed that the British had acquired the highest culture, the highest level of morality, according at least to his definitions of morality, and the highest standard of living, the most perfect language. He felt that the race was superior, and that for the benefit of the rest of the world, for their good, it was their responsibility, this group, using the British Empire, it was their responsibility to rule the world for the benefit of the world, of course. It was very carefully spelled out in their writings and their goals. Now, this evolved not too long after the organization was put into motion. It changed. The goal changed. World domination didn't change. Control from behind the scenes by a very small elect group didn't change. But what did change is that the focal point for this was no longer the British or the England, but it was to be a new world order, international in scope, and to be housed through an international organization of some kind. Initially, they had hoped that it would be the League of Nations, and all of their members worked very hard to create the League of Nations for that purpose. And when that failed, then they set their sights on the United Nations, which finally was put into action and now is on a fast track to becoming the very structure which they had projected as their goal. And now, of course, the center of all of this, instead of being in England, is focused primarily in New York.